just saw this pop up on my For You page and I had to like drop everything and run back to my studies so that I can make a quick video about it because that is one of my favorite animals in the whole world. It's called a spider-tailed viper, Pseudocerastus urarachnoides, I think. They come from Iran and they have what's called a caudal lure. Caudal means tail, so it's a lure on the end of the tail. Instead of being like a rattlesnake that wiggles its tail around to scare away predators, they wiggle that weird insect-like looking thing on the end of their tail to draw in prey. And then when the birds come down and try to eat the snake's tail, the snake whips around and eats the flippin' bird. They're freaking rad. I worked with snakes for like 5 years and I never got to meet one of these things in person, and I'm still mad about it because they are so freaking cool.
Corals are some of my favorite animals. That's right, they're not plants. They are animals. And they first evolved a little over 500 million years ago. They extract calcium and carbonate ions from the water around them to build a limestone skeleton that they then live on. Every one of those little colonies, or polyps, is literally living on the skeletons of their dead relatives. See the way that they shine? These guys are under black light right now. When something absorbs high energy light and gives off visible light, we call that fluorescence. And these guys are fluorescent because they live in shallow waters. And these fluorescent pigments protect them from the high energy rays of the sun. What you're seeing now is shiny coral sunblock. How beautiful is that?
With almost every single video that I post, I get at least one person in the comments saying that they're way too high for all this. I want to talk to just those people right now. Life on this planet started about 3.5 billion years ago. There's some evidence that it might have been a little bit before then, maybe as close as like 4 billion years ago, but at the latest, 3.5 billion years from very basic single-celled organisms all the way up to things like us. The sun is going to explode in about 4, maybe 5 billion more years. That means that life on this planet will be more different from us than we are from those early single-celled organisms. They will be so far beyond advanced and complex and different and weird that we could probably never even imagine what they would actually look like. So have fun imagining what they'd actually look like for the next hour or two. This is an awesome question because the answer is a resounding You see, for something to be considered alive, it has to meet 7 different qualifications. 1, it has to have form and function. It can't just be an amorphous blob of nonsense. 2 is reproduction. It has to be able to make more of itself. 3 is energy conversion. It can't just make power by magic. 4 is growth and development. It can't pop into existence and then pop back out. 5 is homeostasis, maintaining an internal environment. 6 is responding to stimuli. It has to know what's going on around it. And 7 is evolution. It has to change over successive generations. Viruses do one of those things. They evolve really, really well. Everything else on that list is like maybe questionable at best. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions. If you can't have kids, it doesn't mean you're not alive. But for something to meet like not even half of those qualifications, we can't technically call it alive. But viruses don't seem to care what we think, and they're living just fine without our approval.
Somebody asked me about seahorses recently, and how it is that in this species alone, the males, not the females, give birth. The truth is, seahorses and their close relatives are the only animals that we know of where the males do this. And it's because the females deposit the eggs before they're fertilized into a special brood pouch that the males have on their bellies. The males then fertilize and hatch the eggs all by themselves. But this has nothing to do with whether they're males or females. In the animal kingdom, the actual qualifications for these tags is just the size of your gametes. If you have lots and lots of little tiny germ cells, we call those sperm and you're a boy. If you have very few gigantic germ cells, we call those eggs and you're a girl. Beyond that, what gender is totally up to whatever animal you're talking about.
I get comments like this one a lot, and what I feel like people who think this way are failing to understand is that life is chemical reactions. Every single biological process, every single thing that you have ever done or said or thought or felt at its most fundamental basic level is just a chemical reaction. You can argue that it's an emergent property of all that chemistry, sure, but it's still just chemistry. The same way that fire is just chemistry. You can't go grab a scoop of fire because fire is just the term that we use for the conversion of hydrocarbons and oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. Your life is just your metabolism. It's catabolism breaking down old molecules, anabolism building up new molecules, the sum total of which, your metabolism, is giving you the energy to live. And the only difference between that chemistry and the chemistry that happens in a jar in a laboratory is that what happens in a jar is a closed system and your body is not. That's why it's able to fight up against entropy without violating like the second law of thermodynamics. Life is just chemistry. Mushrooms are flippin' rad, and if you're not excited about them, I'm going to give you some reasons why you should be. First of all, they're not plants. They're actually more closely related to animals than plants. How do we know that? Well, you can ignore all the mountains of amazing genetic evidence that proves it and just look at their cell walls, which aren't made of cellulose like a plant's are. They're made of chitin, which is an animal protein that makes things like the exoskeletons of crabs and spiders and lobsters and cockroaches. So that's awesome. They're also heterotrophs. They're not out there doing photosynthesis, making their own food like a plant does. They eat dead plants and animals just like you do. And that's why fungi are so important for the life history of every single land, plant, and animal ever. If mushrooms weren't there to eat the first dead plants on land like 500 million years ago, plants would have never been able to push their way inward. Without mushrooms tilling the soil, we wouldn't have grasslands. Plus, the biggest living organism on Earth is a mushroom whose underground filamentous network is almost 4 miles across.
This lionfish is in the same family as scorpionfish. They are some of the most venomous fish in all the ocean. See those spines along their dorsal ridge there? Each one of those is packed with powerful venom. There's about 18 of them. Then they have those beautiful pectoral fins on the sides. They wave those around to hypnotize other little fish, back them into a corner, and swallow them whole. They're gape-limited predators. That means the only limitation to how much they can eat is what they can fit in their face. See their jaws? How they hinge at the bottom? They don't just flap up and down. They swing open to create a huge negative space to cause a vacuum to suck in all the water around them. And if any poor little unfortunate fish gets caught in that torrent, they get swallowed up immediately.
I've always hated the idea of giving somebody flowers as like a romantic gesture, because what are you really saying, right? What do the flowers do? They just sit there. My love for you is placid and arbitrary. Flowers, they rot and wither within a couple of days. My love for you is on a time limit. You know, it's going to be over soon. They smell nice and they look nice, so I love you because of how you look and how you smell. If that changes, it's all over. No. Way better way to express your feelings for somebody. Give them a potato. Because look at the potato. It's ugly and it comes out of the ground. I love you no matter what you look like. It can be used in so many different ways. You can mash it, you can chop it, you can fry it. It goes with anything. I love you in so many different ways, and anything that I do is better with you. Plus, it lasts for freaking ever. You can keep this thing in your pantry for like a month, and even if it starts to go bad, you just chop it up, put it in the ground, it makes new potatoes. My love for you is everlasting, and it just keeps getting better and just keeps growing. Way better way to express your feelings on Valentine's Day. Get your boo a potato. If you look back over my career, especially my very first videos here on TikTok, you'll see a common thread that I like to try to weave into everything that I do. And I want to take a second to just really drive that message home right now. Race and gender and all of these other toxic little tribal lines that we like to draw around each other are not real things. They are made up cultural systems of labeling that were invented by humans. They are nothing more than the broken heuristics of a stupid worldview, and we need to just let them die. The distinct sets of unique biological characteristics that would be necessary to justify something like a system of races simply do not exist. Cultural gender norms cannot be reduced down to or predicted by someone's biological sex whatsoever. And countless studies have shown that people are able to switch their in-groups and their out-groups at a moment's notice with very little provocation. So please, don't waste one more second of your life trying to find your place. Just be yourself and love everybody else like your family, because they are.